tell me, one, how you felt physically, and two, what was going through your mind, that now the violence has come from violent towards inanimate objects to your physical person.
I think the first thing I felt was shame for my kids that just watched me get hit from the backseat. We didn't have a big car. We didn't have a lot of money. Like, we were in a Nissan. Like, if someone sneezed, everyone heard it. So for me to think or be that mom to try to pretend, oh, he's playing, it was too close that time. It was too close. The argument didn't happen at night that I can tell my kids, oh, it was a movie. They saw it. They watched it. They felt it. They lived it with me. So the first thing I felt was shame and embarrassment. And actually the hit I didn't really feel. Like, I was angry. I was yelling. I was just driving. I was in the moment. I knew that I got hit, but it wasn't like I expected it. It really caught me off guard. So I can just say the first thing I felt was shame. I think the pain came more so in the morning. I take my kids to school. I had to put on more makeup or larger shades to walk them into grade school. And
so you were swollen?
Oh, yeah, I had a black eye the next day.
Did he apologize? Not that that matters, but I'm just curious, was there ever any contrition, any remorse?
That's the beautiful thing about alcohol. It wears off. And the next day we're sorry, and there's flowers, and we'll make breakfast. But every time I went to the bathroom or looked in the mirror, that bruise was still there. I wasn't working. He was the sole provider. I instantly, when I saw that bruise and where we were, felt trapped. But there was definitely, and I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. We should go to therapy. We didn't do any of those things. But there was always a sorry the next day.
Yeah. Miss Millicent, you hear this, and I assume it sounds very familiar to you as well. You've been married now for 22 years. So this marriage, this violent marriage for you, was this the 80s, the 90s?
Well, this was in the 90s.
The 90s.
Yes, 92 to 90. Well, it was just 3 years, but yeah, 92, we got married, yeah.
So I'm curious for you, after that first slap, what compels you to stay after that for the second slap?
Good. So, you know, our people have a very interesting history and culture all across the board. So my mother has been married. My mother has 3 children by 3 different men. She's been married 5 times, but none of those 5 husbands were any of our fathers. You get that?
Yes,
okay.
Ma'am.
So now I had already left the first marriage. So then there's this part of me like, oh my God, I don't want to keep getting married. You know, I got to learn how to be married and work it out. You know, even though I had seen dysfunction, you know, there was some level of acceptance of, you know, you got to put up with stuff and you got to tough it out and stick it out. And I wanted to make it work. And he sold me such a beautiful bill of goods, like, oh, I'll take care of you and your kids. You know, you don't have to worry about anything and so forth. So I had a fantasy of what a marriage looked like, never having had a healthy, constructive model of what it looked like, actually. And so in my third marriage, years later and well after the fact, I just thought about it one day. I'm like, well, if I don't really know what a healthy marriage looks like, but if I did, what would it look like for me? What would it be for me? And I created that. I said, you know, it's going to be no drama, no ridiculousness and conflict, and no shouting, raising of voices, hands, and all that. No, what is a marriage supposed to be? So I created that in my head. And then when I met my husband, he was such a beautiful, gentle soul, on the same page energetically and so forth, value system and everything. I'm like, wow. This is possible. So there's a lot that goes into the creation of a healthy relationship, but I didn't know that early on, and I didn't have healthy models of that. And I think that our people historically have been inflicted with so much pain that we now have internalized it, and we do it to ourselves and to each other.
Yes.
And therein lies the problem, that there's a lot of conflict, but most of the conflicts are it's just epigenetics. It's in our DNA. The trauma that's still
generational trauma that we carry.
That's the same thing, and we carry it forward, and we haven't worked it out. And there's been no trauma. I mean, there's no therapy and no healing. You know, the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy, post-traumatic slavery syndrome. Are you familiar with her work?
I'm not. No.
Incredible. She talks about the problem with trauma and how it is inside of our genetic system. And because there has been no support and no real healing and reconciliation, it continues. And it continues at an unconscious level even.
Yes.
And how we have to really work to heal that pain from way back when, because we have carried it forward.
I'm so happy you brought that up because, you know, Ariel, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear you speak. We met obviously before the show. You were
Right.
back to put on your makeup. And I'm like, oh, this girl's so beautiful. And you have such a bright, shining spirit.
Thank you.
I hear you speak about this and I still feel shame from
Yeah.
you. And so I'm happy you brought this up to show this is what we carry, you know, not that this is an excuse for anyone and we want to encourage people to leave the situation. But it was not a situation that you openly invited, you know,
Right.
because I hear you now and your voice sounds like you're apologizing even now when you
Yeah.
have nothing to apologize for. Do you recall your rock bottom in this marriage?
Yeah, it's probably right before it all fell apart. Not saying I knew it was coming, that we were gonna have a divorce, but I knew I didn't want to stay anymore. And I didn't know what leaving even looked like, what that financially would cost, what my kids' future would look like for myself. So yeah, I just remember I gave birth to my daughter in September, and I enrolled for courses just to do something because I knew I needed money if I was going to pay for my kids.
What
If
kind
he
of courses?
continues medical billing and coding.
Okay, what
I
you're doing now.
enrolled in a tech program east side of Orlando. I was still vaginally bleeding. I was still breastfeeding in the bathroom, pumping. I just knew this is a 6 months course and I can shut my mouth and be quiet for 6 months, long enough to get a job. So that was the only thing I knew I can do. I couldn't just sit there. I couldn't continue to allow him to pay all the bills, even though I think that's what people say the goal is. I felt like it took all my power away to not be able. He used to check the gas meter. How far did you drive? How long were you gone? How long are you going to be there? If he wanted to have drinks or go out more than he wanted to pay the lights, he did that. And we would sit in the dark until he got a next paycheck to pay for the lights. It was at his call and at his discretion, and I had no skin in the game besides birthing his children.
Let me back up. So at the time that he strikes you the first time, you're not married. You had just had your son. You said
At the Thanksgiving, we were married then.
you were married at
Yes.
that point. I would ask you what I asked Miss Millicent. What compelled you to stay for the second time?
I guess it will be what I saw. Circling back to kind of what you said, it's crazy how stories overlap and it doesn't have to be the same person.
Yeah.
My family was and is still picture perfect. It's a Black wife, it's a Black husband. We have 3 Black children. No child's really out of wedlock. There's like some might be adopted, but it's very cohesive. Everyone lives a very nice life. Everyone's in $500,000 homes or more. Everyone lives on the east side. Everyone has done their job and their place in society to be where they are. And you, being the single mother of 2 children, now finally getting married, I kind of felt like if I didn't stay, they were all right. It's not going to happen for you. You've already ruined your life. We told you at 16 to get an abortion. You did not. And because you kept this child, your life will always be hard. So I finally had someone that loved me, that stayed.
I mean, thank you for that honesty. It's like heartbreaking to hear. I have to tell you, forgive my language, Miss Millicent, but you're a fucking superhero.
Thanks.
And I am, if no one tells you, I'm like so proud of you
Thank you.
that you have the strength to leave. Because I think people think about, you know, that you have the strength to leave. I hear your stories and it's like, where did you find the strength to stay?
Yeah.
I cannot imagine living in that kind of violence. But it's more than violence. I think that's the important thing. It's more than violence. It is control.
Yeah.
Complete control over your life. Checking your gas meter. I mean, this is insane behavior to me. So if you can, because I'm so moved by your story already, but
beyond your story, your spirit.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you can, talk to me about when it all broke down, when it was like, okay, enough, I have to get out of here. Because I think the internal innate survival instinct for you to say, hey, I got to learn a skill. I got to do whatever I can to save myself and save these babies.